Welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with me, your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Revilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. This is a podcast where you drop in for the threads, but often leave with something quite unexpected. I talk to self-starters and creators about their journeys, the highs and lows, and the lessons they've learned along the way. If you haven't already, please support the show by subscribing. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please help me out by leaving a rating and a review. I'm joined today by an amazing pair of branding agents for business stars. They're international best-selling authors, hosts of the Be Bold Branding podcast, and partners in BrandFace. They've helped and inspired authors, podcasters, coaches, sales professionals, real estate agents, and business owners in 5 countries and 43 US states to stand out, outsell their competitors, and become an authority in their market through the power of personal branding. Their passion is unveiling inner stars, and their mantra is people don't do business with a logo, they do business with a person. Tailoring Talkers, please welcome Tonya Eberhart and Michael Carr to the Tailoring Talk Show. Tonya, Michael, how are you?
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Robert, for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. We're happy to be here.
You're so welcome. Okay, so Michael, straight away, your accent has got such a rich baritone. What part? Because you're both calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. I have lots of friends in that state. Have never visited, but it is on my list. The next time I'm getting back to the States, I'm coming to you. But where are you originally from? I'll go Michael first.
Roberto, we're actually born and raised about 45 minutes from each other. And wow. I was born and raised within about 30 miles of where I live right now. So we're both North Georgia originators, and still live most of our days here north of Atlanta, Georgia. We're about 40 miles north of the city.
Yeah.
But Tonya doesn't sound like this, and I don't know why.
Yeah, no, that's why I was wondering why there was such a contrast between your accents.
Right. Well, I left home when I was about 19. I moved to Florida. I went to theater school. And went to theater school at Florida State University. And the first thing I learned when I got there is, okay, you need to go through voice classes, because if you don't, you will only get cast for Southern plays. And do you know how many Southern plays there are? There aren't too many.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I'm going to be able to go beyond just 1 or 2 plays, I'd better do something. So I went through a voice class called Transatlantic. And that kind of leveled out my Southern accent. However, you will hear it during the show at some point.
It's still there. I can catch it. I used to work for a US firm, so we used to have our conferences mostly, like twice a year, and they'd mostly be in Florida. They'd be on the East Coast, right? But we had offices out in Atlanta and in other places in Georgia. And I used to just love getting together with everybody, because you'd have people from every single state in the US. And I remember there'd be a lot of evenings where, for some reason, the British guy always kind of gets to hold an audience when you're kind of after conference, the small hours of the morning, and we'd be out by the hotel swimming pool. And I'd just have this group of people that I'd be hanging out with. And I remember hanging out with all my friends from the Atlanta office. Hi, if any of them are listening, they're probably not. And I just could listen to them talk for hours and hours and hours. I just absolutely...
it's very charming.
I love the accent, really.
The British accents and Southern accents are really 2 of the most charming accents there are.
Yeah.
Look at her wooing us both, Roberta.
I know. It's true. I've always felt that way.
You can't see it because of my natural coloring, but I've gone as red as Michael's gone right now. I'm like, I'm blushing here. But yeah, no, honestly, I could listen to you all day.
You do have to get to Atlanta. It's we're the number 1 city for international business in the United States. Like Delta plays a big part of that because it's such a huge airline and based right here. So we look forward to you coming here and us meeting in person.
Yeah, no, thank you. So So I guess this is kind of quite appropriate because, I mean, what I do in my day job is really all to do with personal branding, because I'm taking people who come to me, and some people do just come to me because they want clothes and they don't like shopping, and I just make it convenient for them. But a lot of people are coming to me because they're trying to work out and kind of figure out who they are and how they can show that to the world. Or in some circumstances, hide who they are and portray something else to the world. So, but I wouldn't call myself an expert on personal branding. I'm more an expert on, I guess, making people feel confident. But obviously, this is what you guys live and breathe. When it comes to personal branding, people often get it confused with marketing as well. Like over here, people use those two terms interchangeably, but I kind of get the feeling that they're actually two distinct different things. What would you, how would you kind of define the two? And am I right? Are they two completely different things?
You are correct.
Yes,
absolutely.
They're two completely different things. And we've pretty much simplified the definition of that. Marketing basically is utilizing different platforms, different marketing vehicles and platforms to get a message and image out to the world. Your brand is that message and image that you're putting into those marketing platforms. It's like, what are you saying? How are you coming across? How does it make people feel? Mm-hmm. A billboard or a radio commercial or a YouTube video doesn't make somebody feel if there's nothing in it, right? Yeah. It's just a vehicle, it's a vessel. So, but when you put the right emotion and words and look into something, you change how people feel. And that's really the difference between branding and marketing.
Yeah. Wow.
Definitely two different things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, do you know, I meant to ask you this before I asked you that. This is going to happen a lot, by the way. We're going to bounce around. Do you know the other problem as well? Is this guy, so everyone you can't see at home. So this is, say hi, Bailey. This is Bailey. He's our Cocker Spaniel. He's a rescue and he's a pest. As he sticks to me like, yeah, I won't go full story because our listeners have heard it 67 times already. But, found him on the highway. Someone had chucked him. He had a broken leg. He was in a really bad way. We found him, took him home, rehabbed him, lots of surgeries, lots of love and cuddles, and he's absolutely fine now. He's a wonderful dog, but he is a pest because he just sticks to me like glue, don't you?
He's perfect.
We have a beagle that I saved on the side of the road because I was on the phone with her and she's like, "Don't you leave that beagle on the side of the road." And I picked him up and he is our pest. He has been with us for 5 years now, so we know exactly what you're talking about.
So I want to kind of just get a little bit of each of your stories, and forgive me because this is actually another tailoring talk first, as well as having two wonderful people from one of the most wonderful states in the United States. There's two of you. And so I'm kind of just working out how to deal with that. So Tonya, your background. So in our pre-talk, you talked about how you went to theatre school and so on, and then but you paid your way through college by getting a sales job. Is that right?
I did. I was selling vacuum cleaners door to door. Yeah. And that was really where I got the first taste of personal branding, because I realized I can't just go up and say, "Get out your wallet. I want to sell you something," right? You had to have this story that people were attracted to let you in the door. And I actually became very good at that. And did that really well. And then I sold a vacuum cleaner and shampooer to this guy who was a radio station engineer. And he asked me if I wanted to sell radio. And I said there was a job available at his station. And so fast forward 18 years later, I was still in the media world. So I got to the media world there. That's where the story amped up a little bit. not only was I getting doors slammed in my face because I was super young, but I was getting doors slammed in my face from people who were spending a lot of money on advertising. And I thought, wow, this has to change pretty quickly, or this is not for me. So I realized that if I wanted to be seen differently, I had to change the way I presented myself, much like what you do, what you help people do. It's like if you want something different from the world, you have to present yourself in a different way. And so that's when I realized the power that personal branding could have on a business. And that's pretty much, it was it was 2 decades, after I got into radio before BrandFace would become what it is.
Yeah. Wow. Can I just say that if you'd been selling vacuum cleaners door to door over here and I was in your territory, I think I would have a lot of vacuum cleaners. You probably would have been able to sell me every single week with that southern drawl.
I was selling in the wrong country.
I know. Like by week 3, it would have been like not. Oh, hi Tonya. Yeah, no problem. Just right. Where do I sign? Now, Michael. So, top selling realtor. We have a different term for it over here, so hence hesitation. So, top selling realtor, right?
Real estate agent.
Real estate agent, and life broker. So you were in that kind of property kind of environment. So then, where did personal branding and so on come into that for you? I imagine pretty early on, because when you're selling property, it's pretty important how you're presenting yourselves, especially, when you need to presumably differentiate yourself from the other people in your industry, because we know that there are different types.
Yes. Actually, I had been an entrepreneur for nearly 21 years before I met Tonya. And so I was trained originally as an auctioneer. And then my mentor told me to get my real estate license. I might make a little extra money. I did that and did make a little extra money selling a farm sale or something like that. But mainly I was a car auctioneer. And so a circuit car auctioneer. I'd travel around the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee, and a little bit of Virginia. So because I had a real estate license and I had practiced that when the mortgage debacle hit, you remember those late unpleasantness that we all had to live through because of greedy bankers? Yep. That I teamed up with a company out of Irvine, California. We went after the Bear Stearns residential real estate portfolio when they went under. And we ended up auctioning off about 75% of that, which ended up being well over 175,000 units. I was involved with really well over 100,000 of those. I could directly trace 65,000 of those. And so what happened, though, thank goodness, is we started working our way out of that, right? The market began to return and regular what we call arm's length residential real estate transactions started to come back. So I came back here to my home north of Atlanta, and I was young enough. I wanted to, continue to being an entrepreneur. So I opened up a real estate brokerage. The lady that helped me do that ended up being her aunt. And she said, your marketing stinks. You need my niece to come help you. That's what she does. And at that time, she said it that way. Your marketing stinks. So I am a marketer. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years now. I believe in marketing. You have to market yourself. I believe in 100%. There's no limit to what I'll spend in marketing. But what I was doing is what a lot of people do for 20 years. I was just throwing stuff against the wall, hoping it would stick.
Yeah. I
asked a man one time worth nearly, at that time, he was worth $500 million. He's probably worth $1 billion now. I asked him one time, I said, how much money in marketing should a company my size be spending? And he said, all of it. That was his answer. All of it. I'm like, I still don't know what that means. I don't know what all of it means. But when I met Tonya said, you don't need marketing. You need branding, because
then marketing.
Nobody really knows who you are. They don't know what you stand for. They don't know why that's important to them. So you're not attracting the right people. You're not speaking the right words because you don't know what your brand is. And I fought her a little bit on it. I was like, well, I just wanted my name on the door and be the guy that nobody can ever find. And she said, no, that won't happen. If you're going to work with me, you're going to be out front, and I'm going to teach you how to be authentic. I didn't need teaching how to be authentic, but I needed teaching how to show my clients I was authentic.
Yeah.
And this is when everything changed for me. And so I literally listened to every word she said and executed it. And our brokerage took off. We started at the end of 2013, 2014, we quadrupled our revenue. By 2015, we quadrupled our number of agents and our revenue from the year prior. And that trend continues even to this day. And we've got a boutique brokerage with about 26 agents. And we keep it that way for a reason. I have highly successful agents that I push really hard individually that are also branded personally. Yeah. So she has continued to prove time and time again that putting yourself out there correctly to your ideal customer, then taking that message and marketing works fantastically.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the fact that all of your agents are individually branded as well, because that question was the next thing I was going to ask you, because it's all very well having worked out, obviously, your identity and brand, translated that into your business, and then that's helped you to grow so much and to take on so many people. But then are you then drilling that branding down on an individual basis, because you've got people who are all different personalities and so on, and so that's obviously very, very important. Well done. That's such an awesome story. And that brings me neatly to obviously how you both met and are working together today. That's awesome.
We were tricked into it.
Yeah.
We were.
We were actually.
Carolyn kept telling me she was expecting my phone call, and she was telling Tonya, Michael is expecting your phone call. And I was still, at that time, I had an office in Atlanta, an office in Irvine, California, an office in Seattle, Washington. I was still all around the country. And she finally called me. I was in San Bernardino, California, when she called me, and she said, hey, I don't know if you're supposed to call me or I'm supposed to call you, but I'm calling you. My name's Tonya, and I hear you need help. And I was very rude to her, Roberto. I told her I had had 5 before her just like her, and I didn't need another one.
I mean, you were immune to her accent, first of all. I mean, if I'd had that call, it would have been a lot easier, Tonya, right?
Right.
There's some parallel dimension where I'm sat where you are right now, and you're sat over here. But anyway, we're in this reality, so. But that again, you see, it's like you're reaching into my brain. You're taking the question, because that was going to be my next question was, how resistant were you when she tried to connect? Because I'm guessing you were probably thinking, hey, I'm doing pretty great. I'm doing all right. I've got my marketing's kind of pretty much there, and, I'm doing pretty well. Why do I need this other person to come and teach me what I already know how to do? Because there was probably a little bit of that kind of cross confusion with the whole marketing versus branding thing. So yeah,
that's actually very common.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is, and I'm glad. Go ahead and answer that, and then I want to follow up. With that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll start off with that was exactly true. That was I was like, nope. What do I need with it? And we have run into that over 9 years of BrandFace growing. We've run into that before. Successful people are like, what do I need with you? And every time I tell them the same story, I'm like, I thought that same thing also. But Tonya's very quick to tell you, she's like, no, you've never met anybody like me. And you do need what I need, what I have. I drilled her with it for like 2 weeks, different questions, because I had been burnt. So I knew how to ask those questions and like, well, what do you think about this? Well, what's your thought on that? I could tell about the 5th or 6th question. She varied from everybody else's thought process. And I was like, she's got this figured out. And I trusted her. I did. And I didn't tell her that. The back end funny story, and she can follow up with it, was I finally had asked her, she was frustrated. She's like, you've asked me every question I can answer. You're just going to have to trust me. And I smiled and said, I did that a week ago. Let's get started. And so
yeah, he gave me such a hard time. He actually said these exact words. I've had 5 others just like you. I don't need another one.
Wow.
And that's when I told him, you haven't had anyone in to help you with business like me. You haven't had anybody like me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to be bold. It's like, what did I have to lose? Right. I knew he needed help. He refused to admit he needed help.
Yeah.
But that brings me to the point that I really wanted to make, Robert, is there are a lot of people who are successful in life, and I think they look at it and say, okay, well, I'm making this much money. I have this many clients and my business is headed in a good direction. I'm fine. I don't need branding. The question you need to ask yourself is, okay, is there room for improvement? And most importantly, could you be doing more in less time? And I think that's where we are as a society today, especially after COVID. Because if you are successful, imagine how much more successful you can be with a truly dialed in brand that allows you to work with exactly the right people and save a lot of time in doing so, because freedom and time for ourselves and our families is the most important thing these days.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really starting to come around, and people appreciate being more effective and efficient.
Yeah. And I think coming out of the pandemic, this is where, I mean, I can talk about my own personal experience, but, we pre-pandemic, it was pretty easy. We were suit and shirt makers and we helped professionals to look and be their best and so on. Then the pandemic hit, we were forced to close. So, and one of my clients said, he's not a client anymore. And you'll find out why in a second. But he said, oh, no one's going to need you anymore. I was like, what? And that really, really got to me. And I don't usually let things affect me. I'm kind of more, like how you were with him, Tonya, where, I've had five other tailors so far. They've all let me down. Like, I don't need another one. I'm like, well, you've had 5 others. None of them were like me. But this really, really knocked me for 6. And it took a few weeks. And then my clients slowly started to get in touch and ask how we were doing, and then sort of tell me that, look, I'm not wearing suits, but, I'm spending all of my time from dawn till dusk on Zoom calls and team calls, and I still need to kind of present myself a little better because everybody's turning up in T-shirts and shorts and whatever. But if this is the way that we're conducting business for the next kind of, we don't know how long, I need to do something about it. And so, I thought about it and I went back to our team and I was like, can we make polo shirts? Can we make jeans? Can we make this and that? And that's what we did. So we built this kind of casual / smart casual custom business throughout the pandemic, and that got us through. And now coming out, there's been quite a big shakeup in our client base, because about 20%, I would say, of our clients, who happen to be the top 20% of our clients, they had stayed engaged the whole time. So then when we came out of the pandemic, as their routine started to change, and, maybe some of them had thought about their careers and then decided to go for a role change or a career change, all of a sudden they were coming to me because they needed more advice. And then that in turn drove changes in their wardrobe needs. And they were buying more because they loved what we did during the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, they're starting to buy the stuff they used to buy before, but now they're adding all this stuff on. So their basket of goods got bigger with us, which is fantastic. But then the other kind of 80% of our clientele, they disengaged. So we're just going through a process at the moment where we're in this kind of transitional phase. Loads of things happened. I also decided that I'd never done networking and events and things like that before in a 20-year career. And I just decided, do you know what? When someone asks me to go to one of these things, I'm just going to say yes from now on and hang the consequences. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to jump in and I'll kind of learn to swim afterwards. And that has opened up so many opportunities, because I've started to meet people, entrepreneurs and people who haven't gone the traditional route to quote unquote success. But, these are people who, like one of my recent clients, he just hit 40, very, very successful in real estate. He runs a team Still, I guess I should probably explain it the way he explained it to me. He's still dressing and shopping in the places he was shopping in when he was like 25, but he's not 25 anymore. And he's not that person that is kind of trying to fake it till he makes it. He's made it. And this guy's more than made it. But he doesn't want to come across as arrogant, but he at least wants to reflect the success that he's had. And for people to look at him and know that he knows what he's doing. And so I'm starting to find more of these people come to me. And because we're now in this, I mentioned it to, I've mentioned it to a few people that I've had on as guests over the last couple months, but the best way I can describe it is like, I feel like I'm in the eye of a tornado and all of this stuff is flying around me and I don't want all of it, right? So we're also starting to kind of define the type of clients that we actually want and, the people that we want to be working with and so on. But all this stuff is flying around me and I kind of feel like I can't actually grab everything and sort of tie it down. So what I thought was my original brand identity is now changing and it's in this state of metamorphosis. And so if I'm going through that, I can't imagine how many other business owners who've had that disruption and that turmoil in 2020, 2021, and now coming out of it, and they're finding the same problem as well. I was hoping there was going to be a question at the end of all of that.
I'm going to try.
And there isn't. But are you hearing this a lot? Have you been hearing this a lot over the last 12, 18 months?
Absolutely. We've heard it so much. And I think COVID shifted a whole lot of things for a lot of people. And you're right. I mean, we saw for us, for BrandFace, things really didn't change how we operated in the business at all, because we really we have very few clients in the city that we're in. They're all over the world, right? So we were doing business on Zoom years before the pandemic. And so we understood that, but there were a lot of people that had to shift everything. And they weren't able to get out in front of their customer anymore and shake their hand and sit across a lunch table from them. So everything changed about how they presented themselves online. All of a sudden, online should have been very, very important anyway, because everyone runs across you online probably at about 90% of the time before they actually meet you in person. There's some representation of you that is an online or digital representation, whatever that may be, social media, email, whatever that is. So they had to do a lot of shifting because they can't get in front of their client anymore. But yet we had to convince them, yes, you can. It's just in a different manner now. You do it through Zoom. So be intentional about it. Your background matters. What you wear matters. What you say matters. What's on your screen when your video is not turned on matters, right? How you send your invitations matter. So all of those things. And it's been a good shift for us because there have been a lot of people who have needed the help. So it put us in a good space, but not all of our clients were in a position to, like you, they weren't in a position to hire us for a little while because, they thought, well, their business was suffering a bit.
And I'd like to pigtail on that. I think that, Roberto, your analogy of that is so indicative of a lot of those people that did come out of that COVID thing. Cause we all felt the same thing when COVID hit. We're all like, okay, what do we do now? We're all just like, is this just going to wipe us out? Are we done? And then when we realized we could work around those things and we started to come out, now I think you're right. I think that so many entrepreneurs have so many different ways that they could go that could be hugely successful. And like you said, I'm the same way as an entrepreneur. I don't want it all, right? But I would like to grab this, and I would like to grab this, and I would like to grab this. And we've learned we can tailor the lifestyle we desire, right? Even if that is, okay, I want a 3-day work week, or I want to, I'm only going to work these days of the month, or I'm going to, whatever that might be. We have now so many people the opportunity to grab those things. And that's where your personal brand is so vitally important. And we work with a lot of podcasters, coaches, authors, speakers, entrepreneurs like that some of them even have products sitting on a shelf getting dusty that they have never really monetized, haven't had time, right? I do think that you're onto something. I think it's a land of opportunity in the world. And if we have confusion now, it's because we haven't set a direction of our own.
Yeah, it's about showing up with intention, with intention. And that's kind of what you're talking about. As you say, you're going through this metamorphosis, if you will, and honing in on who your ideal customer should be.
Mm-hmm.
And that why are you doing that? So you can waste less time. You can work with the right people who appreciate what you do, what you bring to the table, people that will refer you to the others, so you can accomplish more for them in less time. And I think there are millions of people in that spot right now.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's, I'm trying to make sure that as we slowly kind of define day by day, I'm having constant conversations with people. I'm getting feedback from people to kind of see what they see. Because very often, when you're in the weeds yourself, you don't actually have the answers as to, why do our best clients love us? What is it that keeps them coming back all the time? I can't really answer that question. So I have to ask other people, ask our customers as well. But now I keep a journal. I'm very carefully just tracking and writing all these things down. And I imagine at some point I'm going to have all of this information, and then I'm going to use a baking analogy now. I'm going to mix it all into a dough, and then, I'll have some kind of branding cake, and maybe a marketing cake will come out of it as well. The other thing I was going to say, the other thing that I found is that, people emerging out of the pandemics and the pandemic receding, and then all of a sudden people are sort of emerging from their homes and their screens, and we can actually start seeing people in person again. That's causing a whole other set of problems and confusion, because some people have actually forgotten how to do it, like how to be around people in person. Some people went into the pandemic, younger people I'm talking about, who had just graduated, were just about to start their first jobs. Then the pandemic hits. They'd never met any of their colleagues face to face. So again, they didn't know quite how to handle that. So I've been trying to help some people who've come to me sort of navigate their way through all of that sort of thing. But again, have you found the in-person thing something that has landed on your plates quite a lot in the last 9 months, I guess it's been?
Yes, conferences are starting to open back up, right? People are traveling now for major conferences. We just went down to Austin and spoke at a conference for real estate, and then to Dallas and spoke at to Dallas for Podcast Movement, right? And Podcast Movement was a huge event. It was a fantastic event, but that's the first time since the pandemic that I've been around that many people in one place. So it's really nice to see all that come back to life, and those are great opportunities for you.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Oh yeah, no doubt. There's so much similarity to what you do and what we do, because I like nice clothes too, and they do make you, they do bring something out of you, right? And you tap into that with your clients, no doubt. There's just something about putting on something made specifically for you. It, I think, illuminates a light inside of you that everybody else can see, that you might not have been able to do yourself. I liked your weed analogy. We tell people all the time, you can't read. It's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar.
Yeah.
You need people like you to accentuate things about you that you might not do yourself. And we do the same thing with words and images and business acumen that help, illuminate something inside of you that you maybe haven't tapped into yet. Tonya had a guy hit her up one time. He said, "Can you make me a star?" And she said, "I don't make stars. I reveal them. I unveil them." And so I think you do the same thing in being able to touch those people personally with that. And
yeah,
show them something they didn't see.
My newest analogy, it's just because I bought a new car, but I'm using a lot of car analogies at the moment. But my latest one was, you've been cruising around in eco mode for however long, I take my clients, I flip them into sports mode. And
like
people by and large get that analogy because it's exactly what you described 2 minutes ago, right?
So true.
When you put a great outfit on that's been made for you, that's been styled for you, that is in tune with who you are or how you want to represent yourself to the world, it doesn't matter how you're feeling inside. As soon as you put that on, all of a sudden your switch is flipped and you're ready to go. So I'm gonna keep getting my mileage out of that one as long as I can. That was unintended.
Yep,
that pun.
So I was gonna say pun intended.
So where do people start, or where do you start to take someone who is, I guess, fractured and confused? Is probably the term that I'm looking for. And where do you really start to help them to kind of get from, where they are to a well-rounded individual who's confident with who they are and how they want the world to see them?
Well, there's really three phases I think that you need to go through from, the very beginning discovery part until you get your brand out there for the world to see. In the very first place we start is what we call the define stage. We're known for simplifying this process. It's called the 3Ds: define, develop, and display. And in the define phase, we really look at two main things. We look at what are your points of differentiation. Every human being has multiple points of differentiation, not just one. So we look at all of those, and then we look at who is it you're trying to attract? Who are the ideal customers that if you could only deal with that one type of person every single day, that's who you want to draw in. So we look at that, and then based on those things, your points of differentiation in the formula, you really have to be those points that attract the person you're trying to attract. That's how you determine, okay, what do I put out in the world? How do I position myself to attract these people? Well, it's that formula. It's who are these people? What do they want and need? And what different things about you can you offer? Because, better is subjective. Different is inarguable, right? What might be better for you might not be better for Michael, but difference, you both are attracted to something different. It could be different for each of you, but difference matters more. So then we figure out, okay, how do we position that person? What is it that they really want to be known for? And we start there, and then we move into that next phase, which is development.
Yeah.
And in that development phase is where we build the rest of the structure for a brand, for a great brand. We get into imagery, background images, photos, styling, what that looks like to try to portray the message that we write, bios, elevator pitches, the things that you need to have at your ready of what makes you different for everybody that you come in contact with, that ideal customer you want to deal with. And we build that around them. We all know that a picture's worth 1,000 words. So that picture has to match those 1,000 words. If it's a different picture, you're not gonna have brand congruency. You're not gonna understand how this ties in to everything else that you're seeing. And then that's pretty much the development phase. We look at about 77 different criteria with each person to develop that out, to really bring that message to the forefront for their ideal customers.
Yeah.
And then in the display phase, it's just taking all those branding elements, your logos, your photos, your imagery, your colors, the story, the brand messaging, and placing all those correctly and, most importantly, consistently everywhere. Everywhere somebody can come across you or your brand, it should be a consistent look and feel.
Yeah. And does a consistent look, and I'm just playing, I don't know what I'm doing here, devil's advocate, but is a consistent look and feel, some people might say, well, that's easy. I don't need you guys to tell me that. I can just put the same profile photo everywhere, and I can just put the same tagline everywhere and the same headline everywhere. And, my LinkedIn profile and my Facebook profile and my Twitter profile, I'll just put the first kind of 3 sentences and then I'm done, right? That's my brand out there. But we run into there's slightly more to it than that, right?
Right,
a lot
right.
more.
Yeah, we like to say don't get caught with just the three amigos, right? The three amigos are a photo, a logo, and a tagline. You don't want just those things, right?
Yeah.
A brand truly is at its core, the core of its definition, it's an ecosystem,
Mhm.
right? It is who is this, the essence of this human being from the inside out. And
Mhm.
so the story about that person matters, how they show up matters, what they wear, how they present themselves everywhere in every facet of what they do.
Mhm.
And yes, you can, make your cover photos match and you can put the same tagline or logo everywhere. And you can, on the surface, of course, it looks like, oh, well, this is consistent. This looks great. That's only the beginning, right? It's kind of like if you see this gorgeous cake and the icing looks beautiful, but you start to cut it and there's cardboard on the inside, right? There's nothing inside. There's no middle, right? So it's like Shallow Hal. Remember that movie, Shallow Hal?
Yeah.
So it's that's kind of shallow branding because it looks great on the surface, but I still don't know who you are and why I should choose you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And honestly, we run into clients that will build out a brand and their website has that brand and maybe one of their social media has that brand, say their LinkedIn. Their other social medias don't have that brand on there. And so then you're like, you're missing out so many opportunities because people don't do business with a logo. They do business with a person. And if you share with them that you are this great family man, that you rescue dogs, right? That you love baby. You also, by the way, create incredible clothing for people, right? You have a kind and generous heart with a podcast. You have, it's much different than if you're just, hey, I'm a tailor, and you have to. And I think people, I know in my life, in my business, over and over again, we attract people constantly that say, I want to do business with you, right? I want to do business with you because we've set that acumen out. And you can find that threads of those, we'll use that same analogy, threads of those, that same image and branding and who I am in everything that I do, every social media, even down to every radio commercial that's specifically about what I do. It's so very important because it makes up the fabric of who I am. And I'm looking for other people that need that service and like the way that I present it to them. So,
yeah. And authenticity is far deeper than a Facebook cover photo, right? Mm-hmm. Or an Instagram profile. It's a lot deeper than that. Authenticity means that what people see on the surface or what you want them to see on the surface, and maybe even reading through your elevator pitch or so forth, that you live that brand every day in your posts and how you live your life in your videos. And do you show up the same way every day with intention and with the same personality and sharing a lot of the same things? Authenticity is a lot deeper than what you see on the surface. So that's what we mean by the ecosystem of a brand. It's a lot deeper than just a great photo and a tagline.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point Michael made about shallow branding, or you both made about shallow branding, is even more relevant now than I think than at possibly any time in recent history, because when I was talking to a few clients about this and my brother as well, because they're all car enthusiasts, and this is the story that I'm gonna tell. These guys are buying luxury vehicles, right? So I have one client who is investing over 200,000 into a luxury sports car. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's more money. If I had 200K lying around, I probably wouldn't invest it in car because there are other things. I'm different. I like my cars, but I'm not going to spend 200,000 on one. But this is his passion, and he said that he had to chase the salesperson constantly through the whole process. And at the end of it, the manufacturer did their client survey, and he marked the sales guy down to 4 out of 5 rather than 5 out of 5, which I thought was still generous, having heard his horror story. The salesperson called him up and said, why did you give me a bad score? And so my client said, well, I gave you a fair score, and I really hope you'll take on board the feedback. Salesperson put the phone down on him and then proceeded to blacklist him from all of the events that these luxury supercar makers will invite you to as someone who has invested a lot of money with them.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. Another one.
Wow.
He saw a car online. It was his dream car. It's the car that he's aspired to own, like pretty much his entire life. Again, you're talking six figures. He put a deposit down online. No one called him. No one called. Right. So imagine you get into your desk on a Monday morning, you fire up your computer, and an alert comes through saying, this person over here has put a deposit down on that car, and it's a $250,000 sale. So I mean, the three of us, right? We're straight away on the phone to that person. Hey, thank you so much. You know, like, can I take some
lunch?
Yeah, exactly, or more than that, right? And so anyway, long story short, this poor client ended up taking because he lived, I don't know, like 100 miles away from this dealership, and he ended up having to take a train and then a bus to this dealership to then complete the rest of the deal. But not one time did anyone from that dealership pick up the phone to him.
That's
Isn't that
amazing.
Crazy?
They should all be fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
seriously.
if it was me, I'd have been on the phone straight away. Thank you so much. I want to find out some more about you, and then we're gonna do what we can to get you into this vehicle. You know, finding out that he lived 100 miles away, no problem. How can I make this more convenient? You know, I would have driven the car to the guy, to his home, right? For that much money, and whatever commission I was getting, it would probably be more than worth it. But not only that, forget about all those little details. These brands portray themselves to be par excellence in what they do, in everything, engineering, luxury, design, customer experience. These are aspirational products. And it just really exemplifies what you were both referring to as shallow branding, because you would expect that if you're going to someone where you're investing any level of money, because, you know, people are different and different levels mean different things to different people. But you know, where brands big and small are portraying themselves to be 5-star, and then the customer gets there and the experience is 1-star, that's the inconsistency.
It is.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that's what you were really referring to, and that's a live example of shallow branding right there.
Absolutely.
Which is why it's so important to, what I'm getting from this is that you need to know yourself first and decide who you want to be. Work on that to the point where it just becomes who you are, and then you drive that consistency through absolutely everything that you do 24/7. So that when someone does come into contact with you, whether they're someone who listens to your podcast every week, and then they decide that they want to come and work with you because they want you to work with them on personal branding or tailoring, or whatever it is, or, you know, they're your customer on the business side, and then they decide to delve into your podcast or to do something else with you, or they decide that they want to bring you into their personal lives and have you over for dinner and so on. You know, if you suddenly show up as a complete Jekyll and Hyde, that can really, I'm guessing, damage your
disconnect.
Yeah, the disconnect can really damage your brand, your reputation, and the goodwill that you have with people as well. Because then what happens when, someone says, oh, hey, Bobby, you've been working with BrandFace lately. How are they? Well, you know, when I first met them, they were great. And then, you know, they do look really good everywhere they are. But when you actually get together with them in person, it's kind of a different story. You never, ever, which, by the way, you lot listening, I was just using that as an example. These guys are absolutely freaking awesome. Just in case.
No, but that does happen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great point.
We take it extremely serious, like extremely serious. I'd rather have one client say that we're the greatest thing from start to finish than 1,000 with complaints. I can give you a car analogy that's sort of a juxtaposition to what you're saying. My mother actually calls me on Wednesday afternoon, and I said, "Hey, she doesn't usually call me on Wednesday afternoon. We talk every day, but not usually in the afternoon." I said, "What's going on?" She's on broke down on the side of the road. I went, "Oh goodness, where are you?" She couldn't tell me hardly. So I had to get it out of her. So finally I figured out where it's at. And I said, "Just sit tight. Are you safe?" She said, "Yes, I sit tight." And I hung the phone up and I'm thinking, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to fix this? Call a couple of people, still hasn't come to me. And then within 2 minutes it hits. And I'm like, I've got a friend with a car shop that's close to there. So I call him on the phone. Well, he's out to lunch. But the guy that answered the phone literally said, "Could you hold, please?" And he sets the phone down and I could hear him talking with clients and customers and stuff. And he's busy. He's hurried, this whole thing. I'm thinking, oh, this guy's just going to be too busy for him, right? He picks up the phone and said, "How can I help you?" And I tell him the story. I don't know his name. I asked for Scott that I did know. Scott's gone to lunch. Okay, here's my problem. My mom's broke down the side of the road there. Where is she? I told him where it was. He said, "I'll send Sam after him." And I said, "Okay, how will I know Sam's going to be there?" And he says, "Call me back when Sam gets there." I said, "Okay." And he said, "Thank you so much." And we hung the phone up on there. On their website, it says, "We love our customers," right? All right.
Yeah.
So I call mom and I'm like, "Hey mom, I'm 20 minutes away and I'm on my way." Right. But you just stay there with the car till I get there. 5 minutes later, she calls me. I'm en route. And she says, "They're here. Mr. Sam's here to pick up my car." I was like, 5 minutes? Who moves in 5 minutes? Right. So they get it up there. I say, "Hey, would you drop her at a local restaurant you're going to pass to get there and I'll pick her up?" All that works out like clockwork. But I hang the phone up with mom and I pick up the phone, call back. I go through this phone tree. I get this guy again. Same hurry. "Can you hold?" Click. And, he sets me down. And so I hear him talking to customers. He picks the phone back up. I says, "Are you the guy I was just talking to that sent Sam after my mom?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You're a genius." And he said, "If I'm a genius, there's a lot of geniuses walking around here." I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Robin Watkins." I said, "Dude, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate what you've done." He said, "Well, I wouldn't want my mom on the side of the road." And he says, "We'll get it over here. We'll find out what's wrong with it. We'll call you." I said, "That sounds great." He took my phone number. We hung up the phone. So 2 days passed. I haven't heard from him. I call my mom and I'm like, "Have you heard from Robin?" She said, "I don't have to." And I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Anybody that moves that fast to take care of us is going to take care of us." And it's true. And they're working on the car right now to be done this afternoon. I mean, it was complete. What they said on their website was exactly how they lived.
How they act.
It was exactly how he acted. And it might be 2 or 3 days before he can actually fix it. But it was 5 minutes that he had the problem in mind and taking care of it. He was busy. I did have to call him again, but I had the confidence in my heart, and so did my mother, that they were going to take care of the situation.
Yeah.
When I called him back, "Sorry, I haven't called you yet. We've been busy." I said, "No problem, Robin, no problem. I'll have you ready this afternoon." So it's living like you said. We love our customers. It was very clear to me he did. And his business was that busy. That's why. Yeah. And I've never been the kind of guy that minded if it was going to take longer to get the product done or longer to get the service, as long as there was honesty in the service. And I think that a lot of people miss that. And like to your point of those higher brands that claim one thing and then somewhere down the line fail at that.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of worked out our company vision. For the moment, it's an evolving thing because I think it changes as time goes on. It's never static for a long period of time, right? But actually writing it down and then copying it and having it on everybody's desk and workstation is making such a big difference, because at the very least, while we're figuring the overall kind of branding and identity out, at least this is keeping us to a level of consistency with the very minimum of who we want to be and what we want to be known for in the marketplace. Which I think has been a kind of good thing to do. But I think this is what I was talking about, where kind of knowing yourself, it seems to be the first very, very important step. And then once you've got that figured out, then you can kind of move on from there. Obviously people just make it easier on themselves and just work with BrandFace instead, and then you just get that helping hand.
We would love that.
We would love that. Well, that's why we spend so much time in the define phase with our clients.
Yeah.
Is to do that very thing you're talking about. Figure out exactly who they are and who they want to point that service towards.
And it is a lot about unveiling their inner star. Even the most accomplished men and women who have no problem with, self-worth or understanding that they're good at what they do, when they go through this process, there's still such an appreciation that they end up, an appreciation for themselves. A lot of times when we go through and we read their brand messaging to them, which is in effect their story, they'll stop in their tracks. A lot of times they're tears, right? But they'll stop in their tracks and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, is that me? I can't believe that's me," right? And it doesn't matter how successful they are already. It's they see something different than what they have right now. They're working themselves to death.
Yeah.
And they really want to be able to be that recognizable go-to person in their space and stand out from everybody else and wake up every morning, walk out the door and know that I'm different, I'm unique, I'm special, and these are the people whose lives I'm going to affect in a very positive way today, right?
Yeah.
And there's something about that. It's like putting on that perfect suit, that perfect dress, and it's like, oh gosh, I feel like this was, melted onto me. It fits so well or something, and it's just the right color, and you're just feeling it that day, right? That's how you should feel every day.
Yeah. You both seem to have built a branding business that works differently to, I'm guessing, a lot of other branding businesses out there. Because, when I've met people in personal branding before, it's literally like they just put a new coat of paint onto someone and then send them out. But the problem with that is that coat of paint very quickly starts to peel. And then what was there before presents itself again. And then that person is kind of stuck in the same. You guys seem to be going a lot deeper because you're kind of taking a 360-degree approach to this. Because Tonya, you mentioned there where you're working with entrepreneurs who, before they started working with you, were working themselves into the ground. But you're really looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking at everything from, like who they are, why is that happening, who are the types of people that they're working with, and how do they need to change that to then stop being a complete slave to their business and so on. Is that right? I mean, it obviously was intentional because you're two both very big-hearted, generous, and intelligent people who obviously want to help people, not just get clients and make money. But was that intentional from the very beginning?
It was, and I'll tell you why. It's because that's where I was in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I remember sitting from the very early days of radio. Once I realized, oh my gosh, there are business people out there that are like rock stars. And I wanted to know why. Well, they were very often the face and the voice of their own business. So people got to know them. They became that responsible voice of the business. They got to know their story, why their business started, so I started handpicking clients that I thought would do well with that approach and bringing them into the studio, helping them craft a really good 30, 60-second message onto a radio commercial. Yeah. And that's kind of where my fever for personal branding really I really understood. I'm helping people position themselves better so that they're more recognizable in the community. They're like celebrities, local celebrities. So then when all of that, came forward, of course, I didn't start BrandFace at that time. I was just headed in the direction of personal branding. It was 20 years later before BrandFace would come about. And I had left radio for a short time. I had an integrated marketing company, basically an ad agency, for lack of a better term. And it was during the great debacle that Michael mentioned. There were a lot of people out of work, a lot of people losing money. So I realized at that time we started to do a lot more things than we normally did just just to put money through the doors, right? And like a lot of other entrepreneurs at that time. And I'm sitting at my desk one day as things were starting to come out of that great debacle. And I thought, okay, well, let's face it. Anybody who walks through that door, I could work with them. We could do business with them. But the terrible part about that was anybody that walked through that door, I could do business with them. What that meant was I was no longer special. I was no longer different. There was no longer something that I would offer that no one else could offer, right? And so that's when BrandFace came along. I was there. I was running 90-0. I was trying to keep up with everybody, trying to do everything, spreading myself too thin. And then I realized, okay, I've had this passion for personal branding my whole life. What do I want? What am I good at? Right. And that was a decade ago. And so I thought, I'm going to write this book about personal branding and see where it takes me. About halfway through the book, I meet Michael. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this into a business right now. Why not? I know it works, right? I had done it for a long time before that. I just didn't call it that. And then it just took off at that point. So I was there and I know how that feels. Michael was running all over the place, and he needed to really focus his efforts and his attention in one area, and still leverage what he had learned and experienced from other areas to help his clients in this one area, right? So you're right. It is a 360 approach.
Yeah. And Michael, I'm guessing that the 5 people who you thought were like Tonya, but weren't, who came before her, hadn't done any of that with you?
None.
They just tried to put
a
new lick of paint on you and then kind of send you on your way.
Yeah. It was just a new logo. It was just a new possible tagline, something
new
that,
website.
A website that looked like everybody else's website. It was nothing that really brought out that, why are you doing it? How is that important to your ideal customer? And she brought that to me. And that's why it changed. And then it also became the way that my company now has been scalable. Like we don't, people, marketing doesn't work. I didn't think marketing really worked either. I thought you just spend a lot of money on it and hope that the phone rang. And then now I don't do that. I spend a lot of money on marketing, but I spend it in the right places. We have constant meetings with my staff and we say, 18% of our calls and our businesses come from social media. 30 has come from radio. We can literally boil these things down. So now when a new shiny marketing thing comes up, we may take a chance on it. We've got numbers to look at it. That's how we've been able to change. Branding we were able to take branding and then spend marketing dollars on our brand and then trace back sales to our marketing. And that transforms everything, because now you know exactly where to spend it and how it works.
Yeah.
And it all started with building a brand first. Everybody else said, you need to change the color of your company.
Marketing tool too.
You need this new font.
Try videos. Yeah. Here's a new website.
Post more. I can't tell you the people I've argued with about quantity and quality on social media posting and whether or not it would attract the right people. Well, it doesn't matter how much you do or if it's prettier or catchier than anybody else's. What matters is the brand that's on it and the message in that brand. Yeah. Because that person may laugh, especially now at a TikTok video, but does that mean they're going to do business with you? Probably not. They probably don't. They just think you're a funny person on a video. But if you put if you infuse that brand in it and they laugh at you, now it's different. No, like, man, I like that. I need a new suit. Why would I not go see Roberto? Right. So you have to tie all that in. And that's the world we live in now.
Everyone's getting constantly approached because, if I am, other people must be, but via all the different media that we have these days, whether it's social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, cold messages on WhatsApp. I don't even know how to do that. Right. Trying to sell, the kind of the next thing. And on the rare occasion, one of these guys or girls actually manages to get through to me, it's always the same thing. Hey, we can help to elevate your brand through video marketing or through, have you thought about doing YouTube videos? You need to be on TikTok, you need to be there. And I'm just like, look, guys, I'm still trying to I'm still trying to kind of kind of work out the definition of my brand and so on. So I don't even know if that's something that by the time I finish this exercise, I'm gonna need. I don't know if I need to be on TikTok. I don't think certainly don't think I need to be on Twitter. I know that Instagram is starting to become quite powerful for me, so that's kind of now floating around. But everyone is kind of promising to transform your business and make it the next big thing just by kind of doing exactly what you were saying, just kind of throwing money at them. But then you've not actually built a solid foundation to create the content and so on. So yeah, so that's given me comfort, because at least I know that when I say no to people, I'm doing the right thing at the moment.
You most likely are,
Yeah. So anyone who is listening, and thank you so much, by the way, there's so much. I really, really want to transcribe a lot of what we've talked about, and I'm going to get that done so that we can kind of co-produce some little articles that we can push out there as well, because there's been so much good stuff. But anyone who's listening, who is thinking, do you know what, actually, the 5 branding people that I've had before have been absolute nonsense, but they seem like they can really help me, and I really like them, and I like the sound of them, and I'd love to work with them. What's the first step? What do they need to do?
Okay. So if you're already at that place where it's like, I really like what these guys say, I'd love to at least have a conversation. You can cut right to the front of the line, kind of like you do at a theme park, right? You cut right to the front of the line, go to.
We don't do that. We don't do that in England, by the way. we invented the queuing system, right?
States. Right,
Sorry?
Right. You have to pay for it. You do it legitimately here in the United States. You actually pay extra for your ticket to cut to the front of the line, right? So, because nobody likes the cutters, right?
Yeah.
Nobody likes that. But in this case, it's a very good thing, and you don't even have to pay extra for it. If you want to come right to the front of the line, go to discussyourbrand.com. And if you want to learn a little bit more about maybe, whether your problem is marketing or it is branding, for sure, the ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand for all those out there who are working too hard, want to dial that brand in so you can work smarter, not harder. BrandFaceGuide.com. That's a free guide you can download that'll give you a lot of insight into personal branding.
Brilliant. And I'll make sure that I've got those links in the show notes. I'm just conscious of time for both of you, but I feel like I could go on and on. We're going to have to do this again. Maybe
love to.
Maybe live when we finally get out to Georgia.
For sure. Or we go to the other side of the pond, which is also in our hopes. And so either way, hopefully we can do that live at some point. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll make sure I have all the links in the show notes. Have you both had fun today?
A blast.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yes.
You're charming. You're a sweetheart. And I think, you have a lot to offer, Roberta. So thank you so much for taking the time with us to let us shine just a little bit. And we want to extend that offer back your way. We'd love to have you on our podcast, and let's talk about, what you do for people and why you do it.
Roberto, if I could be so bold as to talk to your listeners directly, listen, guys, obviously you listen. He's fantastic. Subscribe. Please give him a 5-star review. I know we're going to do the same thing. We've enjoyed our time with you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining Tonya, Michael, and I on this episode. Don't forget that Tailoring Talk is now on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. And I love feedback, so you can email the show directly at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You can also click the share button in your player to send the show on to people you know. If you're enjoying Tailoring Talk and feel compelled to throw some change our way and support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Rivilla. Have a great week, and I'll see you on the next one.